All right. So we're here with Rick Thrussel from Sage Hills Vineyard in Summerland. And Rick is my special guest today on this Beyond the Wines conversation. And we're talking about the Sage Hills Vineyard, the winery, what makes it unique, how they've pivoted, how they've adapted to COVID, and now what it looks like that they have reopened. So Rick, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you've been managing in these past 2 months, and now what does it look like that you're coming out of it?
Yeah, well, I actually, I should let you know, I actually wear two different hats. I'm the owner of Sage Hills Estate Winery and Vineyards here in Summerland, British Columbia, and I'm also the president of the Bottleneck Drive Winery Association, which represents 15 wineries, 3 cideries, and a distillery here in Summerland. So a lot of things that I do, I have to do not just for my own business, but also be very cognizant of the fact that I represent the other wineries within our community and other liquor producers. So we have weekly meetings talking about what's happening right now, what's going on in the world, and how do we adapt to those things.
Right. And so has that association been very active and in supporting each other through this time of COVID crisis?
Yeah, it's been really nice to see the kind of coming together of our members and the shared dialogue that's been going on between most of our members as to how do we go forward as a group, and what's in all of our best interests, and how do we get that message out to people that we want to open for business, but we want the consumer to feel safe and secure when they come to our establishments. So that's been a message that we've been really trying to focus on, and and present it in a very uniform front, as trying to come up with a consensus that when you come into a winery in Summerland, you're going to see those same protocols in every producer that you go to, so that the consumer feels safe and comfortable and knows that we're all taking this very seriously.
Yeah, and I think that is critically essential. Have you seen that throughout the Okanagan Valley, or is it specific to Summerland and to the Bottleneck Drive group?
I can't speak on what else goes on. I've had very little contact with other associations, but I would like to think that I think we certainly are one of the leaders in this right now. We are trying to move forward and get all of our members open and get the message out that Summerland is open for business. And hopefully, we've got 5.5 million people in this province. We're sensing that most likely, based on what the government is telling people, that they're going to want people to stay local this year. They're going to want people to stay in our province, support our local businesses, and we're trying to get to the front of that and say, when you're out and about, if you're anywhere near the Okanagan Valley, think about Summerland.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's gorgeous. I was there a couple months ago, right before this big shift, and it is indeed a beautiful, beautiful place. Now, tell me, please, about what has happened now that you've begun to reopen. I know you're observing all the safety protocols, and you've read this 11-page document with all of the details. You've posted your occupancy, removed the tables, the extra tables that you're not allowed to have. So how was that received by the public?
Yeah, I think it's been received quite well. We just to clarify, we removed chairs. We have a fairly large U-shaped bar that people sit around, and we can hold 24 people in our tasting room. So that when the government came out with the new recommendations, one of them was you have to cut your capacity in half. So we now have 12 room for seating 12 people in our tasting room.
Okay.
And every group of 2 chairs, because people mainly come in couples,
Mm-hmm.
has to be 6 feet from the next group. And while we do have an area where we can sit 4 to 5 people, in order to sit there, they have to be from the same group or the same household.
Right.
Then they're allowed to sit together. But we don't sit people together that aren't from the same group or bubble, I guess is the term that we're using now.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And are you finding that people are making reservations, or are they still just stopping in?
No, we've had people phone us to say, "Hey, are you guys open?
Mm-hmm.
We'd like to come by." But people don't seem to be necessarily making reservations. It's certainly not here. Um, but that may change as things get busier.
Mm-hmm.
However, we've never been a reservation-based uh, winery destination. And one of the things that we found, having gone to reservations for a period, was that when you're going to 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 wineries in a day, which a lot of people do,
That's a
and you
lot.
find yourself in that reservation queue towards the 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock end of the day sector.
Yeah.
Um, let's just say it rarely happens when people come in when they're supposed to come in.
Yeah, that's kind of understandable, isn't it? Because it's not a business meeting where you're strictly on the clock. You know, you're there enjoying yourself, and yeah, I could see how that would go off the rails a little bit. I think there's pluses and minuses with that reservation system. For the reason that you just explained, would be a negative. On the plus side, I love the idea of being able to know who's coming, prepare for them, maybe ask them a couple of questions in their booking process about their preferences and the style of wine that they like, so you can even customize your service to them.
There's no question that what you just said there is correct. I mean that it does give the proprietor a lot of pre-information about who's coming in, and it does definitely allow you to structure, the person who maybe you choose to interact with that group, the
Yes.
type of wines that they want. There's a lot of things that, if it works, it can work very well. The problem is, we have to be practical about this. And during the booking period, everybody is, I certainly believe, committed to making that time. In reality, it doesn't happen very often. And so what happens with the winery now is you've got a group of, say, 12 people that have booked your facility to come in at 2:30.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 2:45, and they're not there yet. But meanwhile, people are coming to your door going, "Hey, can we come in?" And now you're faced with either turning these people away or allowing them to come in, and then the group comes in maybe a half hour late, and you're going, "Oh, gee, I'm sorry. Well, we had a reservation. How come we can't get in?" "Well,
Yeah.
you're a half hour late." And so there is problems with it. And we've chosen not to go to a reservation system because it does give us a lot of flexibility in, if people aren't going to be there on time, we can bring people in as opposed to sitting there empty, waiting for this group that's supposed to arrive there that isn't there.
Yeah, understandable, Rick. Absolutely. Well, tell me what happened for your opening day. How'd that go?
Yeah, our opening day was, we were very, very pleasantly surprised with how our opening day went. It was a record day for us as far as opening days go. Uh,
Amazing.
yeah, we were very pleased with that. And, just seeing how happy the customers were that came to our winery, that, "Oh, wow, you're open. Isn't this wonderful?" it's so nice to be back out again. There was a lot of relief that you could see in people's faces that, you know, we were there. We were kind of, in a way, recreating what they were used to, even though it didn't resemble in a lot of ways what they were used to.
Yeah, yeah, and we've been waiting a long time to get back out and experiencing wineries, but also just socializing and going for drives and yeah, yeah. So I can understand that. Yeah, wineries are I think essential. So yeah, I'm really glad to hear that. And you were saying that the type of purchases was different from what you've normally seen on opening day.
Yeah, correct. While our actual numbers of people on an opening day were lower than typically an opening day is for us, the volume that people were purchasing in was much higher than previously. You know, previously you'd get groups that would come in, you know, they might buy 2, 3 bottles of wine and then off to the next winery. Where we had groups coming in and they were buying cases of wine. Um, and so, you know, hey, we're all for fewer people if, you know, we can still give them a very good service in terms of the experience that they get. And I think we were doing that, and they were rewarding us by saying, yeah, you know what, I appreciate your business. I appreciate the fact that you guys have opened and we want to support you.
Oh,
Um,
that's a lot of
and,
love.
and I think the reason also was that there's not a lot of other wineries open yet. And so they're buying wine where they can buy it.
Because we all need wine. Goodness knows, right?
Yeah, especially in times like this.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. So now, in the period when you were closed, I know that you kept selling wine and you kept your operation going, and you moved to some new, different platforms. Now, are there any of those adaptations that you made in these past 2 months that worked so well for you that you want to keep them going?
Well, we created a wine club about a year ago,
Mm-hmm.
and it was really our wine club that allowed us to continue to um, be viable at a time when we weren't open. Um, you know, our industry is an industry that's based around 3 major factors. One, we have our tasting rooms, and
Mm-hmm.
most small independent wineries, that is your biggest form of income right there. In our case, that would probably be where we would pull in between 65 to 70% of our overall income would come
Wow.
through your tasting room.
Mm-hmm.
Then you have your restaurant supply chain, which is all the restaurants in Vancouver, Victoria, that you are supplying with wine. So, you know, and then there's your wine club, if you have a wine club. Now, when you lose your tasting room because you're not allowed to open, and restaurants are all closed, and so you don't have that form of revenue to be able to move wine through, you've lost your number one and number two biggest sources of income. If you don't have a wine club, then it's, you know, you're battening down the hatches and you're trying to keep your costs as low as you can, make sure you can pay your bills, and hopefully stay open until it's time to, you know, welcome people back again. And so for smaller wineries, losing those two revenue streams was in some cases very devastating for wineries, certainly here in Summerland.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah. So your wine club really was significant in keeping things going.
It was integral in keeping things going, and we saw a real upsurge in our wine club membership. We probably grew our wine club in and around 30 to 35% in, you know, in 2 months. which for a smaller winery like us was uh, was surprising, but certainly welcomed,
Of
because
course, yeah.
and what we found was that we had a lot of people that were just all of a sudden signing up for our wine club. I didn't know these people, um, and so I was, I would go on and I would welcome to the wine club. How'd you find out about us? Well, a friend of ours was a member of your club. They got their wine shipment. We were over at their house doing our social distancing. They poured us some of the wine that they got from you. They absolutely loved it and immediately thought, we've got to be members of the Sage Hills Wine Club because we need to get that wine. And so it was a really interesting dynamic where you found these people, huddled together in small groups, kind of sharing what they had and discovering our wines in that way. And it was very nice.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And word of mouth, I mean, so powerful, because when you're with trusted friends or people whose opinion you value and they recommend something, or they've got something that they let you taste, of course that adds an element of trust. So that is fantastic. And that's a huge jump in your wine club membership. That's wonderful. Really great.
It was really, it was something we desperately needed at that time.
Fantastic. So I guess you'll be making that a main focus going forward.
Oh, without question. It's
Yeah.
we got what does it say here now? We got 2 wine club members today already, and it's only 10:30. So
Amazing.
every day we're getting more and more people signing up, and yeah, I think it's something that you're going to see a shift in this business. As I said before, our tasting room was our biggest form of income. That's when you're front and center, you're face to face with people, and you're introducing your product to them, many for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
But now it seems like the consumer is adapting and recognizing that maybe it's a little bit safer right now, certainly, to purchase wine online and have it shipped right to my door than it is to go out and search for it and find something that I like and bring it home with me.
Yeah, safer and also awfully convenient.
Very convenient.
Yeah, yeah.
We
So,
offer free shipping right to people's front door. So.
oh, that's good to know. Good to know. And is that for 6 bottles? A 6-bottle order?
It's for a case.
A case. Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know.
For the shipping as well.
That's a great deal. That's a really good deal. Yeah. So Rick, I have one more question for you. We both agree that wine is like people. And every wine has its characteristics, its idiosyncrasies, its own personality. So I would like to ask you to tell us about one of your wines and its characteristics, one of your wines that you feel most resembles you or you resemble it.
Okay, yes. One of my favorite wines has always been our rosé. And it's a 100% varietal rosé, which is very rare in the Okanagan Valley. Most rosés are always blends, where ours is 100% Syrah.
Syrah, okay.
And Syrah is, it's very robust. It's very full. It's got a lot of character and depth to it. And most people don't put it or make a rosé out of it because it's a very expensive grape to use for that process.
Mm-hmm.
You could make a lot more money selling that wine by putting it in a barrel and aging it for a couple of years and then selling it, as opposed to just putting it in the press, pressing out the juice, not allowing any skin contact, and bottling it. It's the same volume of juice, but you're getting half the money for it. So, maybe my the resemblance there is that while Syrah has this this characteristic of being very bold and kind of dominant. In a way, it's by turning it into a rosé, it becomes very sweet and approachable, which some people may not find me that way a lot of times. And so I think that it's a wine that it's a fairly consistent wine, and I think I'm a fairly consistent person once you get to know me. With a subtle bit of sweetness, but not sugary sweet.
Just that right amount of sweetness.
Yes.
Okay. I feel like I've gotten to know you much better in these last few minutes of our conversation. So at the core, you're dominant and strong, and yet you have a good balance of sweetness and consistency in your character, just like your rosé. Is that quite right?
I would tend to concur with those comments.
Well, thank you very much, Rick. I really appreciate your time today. It's been a pleasure to get to know you and learn about Sage Hills. And in my next trip, which will be very soon, I absolutely will come by and give that rosé a taste. I can't wait. And meet you in person and your family.
Yeah, well, thank you very much for the time that you've spent with me today. And I appreciate all the questions you've asked and for the opportunity to speak a little bit about Bottleneck Drive and Sage Hills Estate Winery.
Thank you again, Rick, very much. I'll see you soon.
Yeah, cheers.
Okay.